Hello everybody, my name is Matt Doyle and I'm here to talk to you today about my book SurReality. SurReality is a budget-priced ebook exclusive horror novelette. It's released through the NSP Shorts range on the LGBTQ publishing house 9 Star Press. The official blurb is Tony Cork and Benny Marks were the princes of UK paranormal television. Then, while investigating an urban legend for their 2015 Christmas special, the couple found themselves torn apart by tragedy. Told through a series of blog posts written by the fans that love them, this is Tony and Benny's story. 3 murders over 3 days, the same time every year. These were the final days of the paranormal investigative show, SurReality. Now, this was a lot of fun to work on. The title itself is just a fun play on words. It's a portmanteau of surreal reality. It came about because where this is set around the idea of a reality TV show, it kind of felt to me like it should be the title of a paranormal investigation show, like a Most Haunted or Ghost Hunters, something like that. Just maybe a little bit more succinct so it would fit nicely on the front cover of a book. The story itself, though, that has a long history for me. It actually goes all the way back to high school. Because on my first day of high school, I had an English literature class, and we were set the homework to write a short story. As he just said, it could be anything we want. The idea was that we'd write it and then a couple of people would read it out during the next lesson, and it would just give the teachers an idea of how we understand story structure, maybe where we're at creatively, how we understand voice, things like that, which, when you're studying like Shakespeare or The Colour Purple or things like that, they're all useful things for them to know what level we're at. So I went home and I wrote my story and got out there for the next lesson. Now, when we go into the room, the teacher had pushed the tables to the side, and what she'd done was she'd set up like a single chair in the middle of the room, and then all the other chairs sort of in a semicircle around it, so everyone would be watching the person reading the story. And I saw that and I thought, there is not a chance in hell I'm going to put my hand up first now. But someone else did, and boy went out, he introduced his story. It was about himself. He was playing football, or soccer if you prefer, at the park, and the talent scout for his favourite team just happened to be in the area, saw them play, signed them to a contract, and they scored the winning goal in the FA Cup final. He read it out, he said the end, everybody clapped, he went back to his seat. So the teacher asked for a girl. A girl comes up, reads her story. Again, it's about herself. She meets a boy, falls in love. It turns out he's secretly a prince, and they live happily ever after in the lap of luxury. Says the end. Everybody cheers and claps and, go back to her seat. And at that point, I'm thinking, I didn't write a story about myself. I have completely misunderstood what we were supposed to do, so I am not putting my hand up at all now. And then the teacher moved to the centre of the room, and she said, the interesting thing is, every time they set this assignment, they get a lot of different versions of these two stories. For the boys, it was often playing for their favourite sports team, sometimes playing for their favourite band. For the girls, there was usually a romance element. The Prince thing came up quite a lot. They think it was maybe a throwback to how my generation, when we were kids, we watched a lot of like Disney princess movies and things like that. So the teacher asked, did anyone write something completely different to these two stories? So I'd sort of like, sort of shyly put my hand up like that, and so, okay, you come to the middle, read your story. So I did. Yeah, it was called Dreadlocks. It was about this homeless man on the streets of New York, and he's bedding down for the night, and he looks down into the alley, and he sees this shape coming out of the shadows at him. And as it gets closer, he realizes it's this girl. She's covered in dirt. She has these long ginger dreadlocks and this rusty blood-stained knife, and as she's shambling towards him, he realizes something's wrong here, and he panics and he gets up and he runs, and he's screaming for help, but nobody's helping him, and he doesn't know whether nobody else can see this girl or if it's just that he's homeless and nobody cares. So he cuts back into the alleys. He thinks, maybe I can lose her on more familiar ground. And then, because I was a young teenager and it's a horror cliche, he, of course, goes and falls over, right? And when he rolls over and looks up, it's too late. The girl's on him. And the story ended with the line, the last thing he saw was the girl with the ginger dreadlocks, the rusty, blood-stained knife, and the face of death. I dropped my voice, dramatically at the end like that, and everybody is silent. And I don't know it's over. So I said, the end. and it's still silent. The whole room has gone deathly silent, and I look up, and all my peers are sat in this semicircle staring at me with this face. And like, they were absolutely terrified of what I just read out to them, because it was so different to what everyone else had written. And the teacher sort of jumped in for the save, and she gets in and she starts saying, well, this was really good, they did that, and that was really good, wasn't it? And everyone sort of very reluctantly sort of, yeah, that's good, like that. And for a few weeks after that, I could walk into any classroom in that school and all the other students knew who I was. That's the weird kid that wrote that story about the homeless guy that got killed by the girl with the dreadlocks. It was the closest I got to high school fame. And at the time it was absolutely mortifying, because I was already convinced I was the weird kid. I realised very quickly everybody else is, they're listening to whatever music is charting at the time, and I'm sat there thinking, oh man, it's so cool that band has a guitarist called Slash. And looking back on it, it wasn't as mortifying as I felt at the time. It was something that influenced me later on, because it showed me that I could get the reactions that I want from the words. I could get people to get that feel that I want from the story. So when I saw the call for NSP Shorts and that horror was part of the call, for some reason my mind went back to dreadlocks, and I just thought, what if I take that basic concept and story and see what I could do with it now, all these years on. Now I have some novels and a couple of anthology appearances under my belt. And it is time of recording, I'm 38. My first year of high school was a very long time ago now, right? But it was fun to revisit it like that, and to try and shift it to something that paid homage to what I did as a teen, while still being more modern and more in line with what I write now. That's why it starts out with the idea being that the urban legend started among the homeless community. Because we do have, in the area that it's set, because I moved it from New York to my local area, we do have quite an unfortunately large homeless community, And we have a lot of rundown shops and things like that, which kind of add to that sort of atmosphere that I wanted to get for it. And, then I moved it to reality TV. Reason being that reality TV is really popular over here. It's the most viewed shows a lot of the time are reality shows. And for me, the only time I really enjoyed them were when it was the stuff investigating the paranormal stuff, like Most Haunted or Mountain Monsters. If it's very over the top, I just I can't help but find it entertaining. So I figured, well, let's do that, let's move it to that. And then I started thinking, well, how would this story spread? How would people get into it outside the reality TV? And I had just reread Bram Stoker's Dracula, which of course a classic horror epistolary told through letters and journal entries. And I thought, well, the modern equivalent of that would be people would share these stories on social media and blog posts, and it would be news websites and things like that, right? So I figured, well, let's take that modern approach. Let's take this classic style of story, and Dracula really is a classic, and try to sort of overlay that over this modern story. And so that's what I did. And so far, I think it came out okay. People seem to be enjoying it. They think it's very creepy, which was the idea. It's not designed to be a full-on in-your-face gore fest or anything like that. It's a subtly creepy thing that builds up to a crescendo, and I think that's what I've achieved with it. So if you're looking for something that's going to cost you less than $1 that you can read in one sitting, it's spooky, it's creepy, and it features positive portrayals of LGBTQ leads, maybe give SurReality a try. Later.